Welcome to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network with your hostess, Jen Josie. Join like-minded real estate investors and accelerate your business towards greatness. You will hear step-by-step strategies for success, interviews with real estate rock stars, and we will dig deep into past projects where we bear it all, including the good, the bad, and some just plain ugly. So get excited. Here's the bestower of badassery herself, the real Jen Josie. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm Jen Josie, creator of RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Whoop, whoop. On today's episode, we have a guest that will be sharing their badassery. But before we begin, here's today's badassery bestowment, my little badass gift to you. Today's topic is vetting tenants. As a real estate investor, one of the most critical actions you can take to safeguard your investment is thoroughly vetting potential tenants. Here are 5 reasons why this is so important. Number 1, financial stability. Ensure the tenant can consistently pay rent. This involves verifying their employment status, income levels, and perhaps even their credit history. Consistent rent flow is key to your investment's return. Number 2, property care. Tenants who are responsible and attentive are more likely to take good care of your property. This reduces the likelihood of damage beyond normal wear and tear, saving you money on repairs and maintenance in the long run. Number 3, legal compliance. Proper vetting helps you avoid legal pitfalls. For example, checking a tenant's criminal background in compliance with fair housing laws can prevent issues related to illegal activities on your property. Number 4, community harmony. A tenant who fits well with the community is less likely to cause conflicts or disturbances. This is especially important in multifamily properties where tenant harmony can impact the overall living environment. Number 5, long-term relationship. A well-vetted tenant is more likely to be a long-term renter, reducing turnover costs and vacancy periods. By investing time in a comprehensive vetting process, you not only protect your property, but also ensure a smoother, more profitable investment journey. So remember, while vetting is crucial, always ensure that your process complies with fair housing laws and local regulations to avoid any legal complications. Now, on to today's episode of the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast. We have with us Tzvi Weiser. Tzvi is currently involved in entity formation with Riverside Filings, part of the Riverside Group of Titles. Riverside specializes in 1031 exchanges, cost segregation, and other critical industry aspects. We brought Tzvi on the show today to teach us about the Corporate Transparency Act, asset protection strategies, and the importance of having an LLC. I have been looking forward to this interview, so welcome, Tzvi.
Thank you very much, Jen. Great to be here.
Absolutely. And this is an international interview. Where are you calling in today from?
I'm actually calling from Jerusalem.
Jerusalem. Oh my goodness. And anyway, I'm not going to get political, but bless you, be safe, all that fun stuff. So thank you for being here with us today. And you are going to nerd out on me, which I like, and I love nerding out. And just, you are the man you want in your corner when you need protection of your real estate business. So let's back up a little bit. How did you get involved in this portion of the industry?
Well, I've done a lot of things. I actually came to Israel about 25 years ago because I was in law school. I didn't like law that much.
You got a few books behind you. Just a few books back there.
I got a few books. Yeah, just a few. I got more if I move the computer further out. And I actually did an MBA. I stopped the middle and I did a joint MBA JD program. I actually did graduate and passed the bar. Gave my Jewish mom her certificate on the wall. I said, "Mom, this is for you." So it was win-win. And I just flew to Coop to Israel with my wife and 3 kids because high tech was in like incredible concentration over here. This was like what was growing in Israel, what was exciting about Israel. And I just wanted to be part of that world. So I flew out to Israel. I actually ran a high-tech company, a software company, a really exciting technology for a couple of years. We had a little crash. Then I did some, that was 2001 when the high-tech bubble burst. And then I ran an infomercial company for about 6-7 years, which was even more exciting. It was international. So, I was all over the world and I had friends all over the place. That was a lot of fun. Infomercials in general are a lot of fun. And eventually I ended up in real estate. And I first started out as a 1031 specialist. And from there, I was recruited to build up an LLC department for Riverside. And that's where I am today.
All right. So before we get into the whole LLC thing, which is very, very important, explain to me what a 1031 exchange is, what the benefits are, what you need to do if you sell a property.
Okay. We spoke a little bit, so I'll give you a little caveat even before I tell you what a 1031 is. Unfortunately, it's not available to house flippers.
Correct.
Okay.
Unless you own it for more than 2 years, though, correct?
Not really. And I'll explain you in a minute. I was actually thinking about posting on LinkedIn about that today, but I got caught up and I didn't post yet. So I'll give you a little preview. I'm glad you brought that subject. It's very complicated. It's very disputable. There's a lot of things about 1031 that there are a lot of gray areas that different people have different approaches to. But the law for 1031, let's back up. 1031 is when you sell a property and you got this huge capital gains tax and you don't want to pay the tax. So the government provides you with the ability to roll it into your next deal. Don't take any money to your pocket, roll it into the next deal, and then you don't have to pay the capital gains tax. Now it's deferred because your tax basis for the next property will not be the basis of the new property you bought. It will be the basis, whatever you paid, plus your old basis. So that tax is just deferred. Your capital gains are still on the books, but you just don't have to pay it until you actually sell out and put money in your pocket. Okay?
Okay.
That being said,
I'm
let's
don't
get back
stop,
to the
keep
house.
going.
Well, I think that's enough. So you defer your taxes. You can defer it forever. Once you die, you get stepped up basis. I never figured out why people want to die with all this property and they screw the government. Great. Okay. I got you. I'm dead and I never paid taxes and I never took money out. So I don't know who wins, Doesn't sound like a big win to me. There are ways to take money out. You can do a refinance and pull money out that way. But in general, the whole concept is a little bit funny. But 1031, just so you understand, the government made a rule where two people can exchange properties and don't pay capital gains tax. Now, of course, we figured out a mechanism, not we, but the industry figured out a mechanism where you can buy from one person, sell to one person, buy from another person. But the government said, okay, we'll agree to that as long as you follow the rules really strictly. So there are a lot of ridiculous, strict rules about 1031 that you can't bend one iota or else your exchange will be declared null and void and you'll owe the taxes. It's not for any purpose other than we let you stretch the rules, but you're going to keep the rules. So that's where this whole idea comes from.
Now, is it attached to your personal home or could it be attached to a rental property?
So that's where we get into the flipper business. The rule is that it has to be used for investment or business use.
Okay.
So a personal residence does not qualify for a 1031. There's other rules where you don't have to pay up to $500,000 capital gains. I don't want to tell you because it's not my specialty anymore. And that was never 1031. There is a tax grace amount for residential residents who sell their property. But the 1031 exchange applies to somebody who had for business productive use or for investments. A house flipper is neither because house flipping is inventory. It's no different than buying widgets and selling widgets. You're buying homes and selling homes.
But what about
rentals?
Because several listeners have Airbnbs that they own, and then when they go to sell them, do they have to do a 1031 exchange, or are they going to have to pay the capital gains? Or
they can do a 1031 because they bought that property for investment purposes and for business purposes.
That's what I wanted to get to.
So now you asked about the holding period. It doesn't really make a difference how long you hold a property for. The length of how long you held it you can make an argument for the government saying, I held it for 2 years because it was an investment. I'm not a flipper. Flippers don't hold it for 2 years. If it was really inventory, what was I doing holding it for 2 years? But that would only be just one piece of your evidence. You would have to actually show that it was an investment or for business use. So holding period, and this is where I was telling you, we were talking about people think that you have to hold it for at least a year in order to do a 1031 exchange because it's investment or business use. If you held it for 2 days, you're obviously a flipper and you can't do a 1031. But the person, my mentor who I worked for, who is pretty big in the industry, he believed that you can do a 1031 on a contract that you flip even before you close. And we had done many of those because his point was, I bought it, I signed the contract for investment purposes. And some guy came along and wanted this property. He said, I'll throw all the money in the world at you. Just give it to me. I'm not a flipper. I invested. So a good deal came away. I got lucky. Lightning struck and I didn't even have to hold it for a day. But that doesn't mean that I am not qualified to do a 1031 exchange. Not everybody will agree with that. But like I said, we've done it and it worked. Not every state's the same. It can work in some states and not in other states.
Interesting. So let's now get into the states. And I have students all across the country, and it's important to house your business in an LLC to protect your assets. And I think that's pretty clear with everyone. But I have heard, and I want you to explain this to me, Tzvi, is why does one person who lives in Tennessee, why is their holding company in Wyoming? And can you explain the importance of all that?
Sure. In LLCs, to get an LLC is permission from a state to do business in that state. You cannot get a LLC in Wyoming and do business in Tennessee. Tennessee will say, you cannot use the court system over here. If you cannot sue anybody, you're not protected over here because you have no LLC in Tennessee. You can go to Wyoming, do whatever you want, but you're in court over here in Tennessee and you're up the creek. You're in big trouble. However, that's if you're in an active business. If you are in a passive business, it doesn't mean I'm doing business in Tennessee. So what I can do is I can have a Wyoming LLC. I can be a passive investor and invest anywhere in the country I want through my Wyoming LLC because that's my holding company. That's where I do business, and that's what the holding company does. Passive investments are perfect for, Wyoming's perfect for passive investments.
Explain what a passive investment is.
Okay, when you have a syndication deal, you can have a GP, who's the general partner, who runs it, he operates it, and then he raises money. Well, you're an investor. So as an investor, that's called a passive investment. You have no decision-making, you have no operational
a limited partner.
Duties. A limited partner, okay. Exactly.
So what if I live in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I just bought a 12 unit in Virginia? Do I have to get an LLC formed in Virginia to purchase the property?
It's your property. You bought it outright yourself. You'll be running it.
Correct.
Absolutely. Because you're doing business in Virginia and you need a Virginia property, a Virginia LLC to hold that property.
Okay. Which I do, by the way. Just so you know. And
I hope that the owner of that Virginia LLC is not you.
Correct.
I hope it's your holding company.
No, it's we just created a separate LLC. It's actually owned by our trust. It's under our trust. Okay. Fantastic. You could, to me, I'm like this. I'm so weak when it comes to this, and because it's so confusing. I'm in North Carolina where we are very protected. I don't have a holding company outside of North Carolina because it's very tough to pierce the corporate veil here. But I do have students that are in states where they don't have as much protection. So that's why it's important to do that. And I appreciate you dumbing it down for me. It's early in the morning for me. It's the afternoon for you in Israel. So I'm
already sleepy. So I'm I'm half sleeping already.
So thank you very much. So why is it important to have an LLC? And also, I'm going to tack onto that. I have students who kind of fell into flipping houses and just happen to purchase a property in their own name. They're flipping it, etc. Then they want to quit claim deed it into their business name. So, they didn't do it right the first time. So how to set up your LLC correct from the very beginning for your business. And then if you need to play catch up, what's the best way to do that as well?
Okay, I'm going to take one step back for you.
Okay.
There's another reason to have a Wyoming holding company other than just piercing the corporate veil. and that's for anonymity. Now we all know that you own a property in Virginia and you may own in North Carolina, and we're going to go after you because we know you got money. So people don't want that. In Wyoming, you can be anonymous. So if I have in North Carolina, you cannot be anonymous. So if I had a North Carolina LLC, it would say your name, Jen Josie, on it if you're the owner of the LLC. But what people prefer to do is have a Wyoming LLC. And then in North Carolina, the only thing it says is the owner, which you have to list, is my Wyoming LLC. They are the owners of the North Carolina LLC. And if you want to take that a step further, you can't, because in Wyoming, I'm anonymous. You don't know who I am. So now I've managed to hide my assets from public view, which is very important in our society, where something could happen. One guy can kill another guy on your property, but the drunk guy has no money, so they're not going to go after him. They'll go after you.
Right.
They'll find some reason to tack it onto you. That's why you want to be anonymous. You don't want to. People should know what your assets are.
Are there any other states besides Wyoming where one would want to get a holding company?
Wyoming's the best because it's got a lot of good things to it. It's the cheapest, first of all. Nevada and Delaware are also
I was going to say Nevada.
Yeah, but they're expensive. And for a typical, Delaware is great for corporations. Nevada is good, but they are a little bit more expensive and they have taxes and their rules might not be as good as Wyoming. And the whole, people wonder, why is Wyoming cheap? Why do they have great rules? Why is New York so terrible place to have an LLC? Why is California so bad? So, the answer really is that states need money and they try to figure out the best strategy to the money, like everybody else. They got a business plan. New York knows we don't need somebody from Wyoming opening up a New York LLC. We got so much business over here. We got so many LLCs. We'll tax them to death. They don't have a choice. They have to be here. Wyoming's got nothing. The only thing they have is the $100 from you forming the LLC. So they got to make it really worth everybody's while.
Oh my gosh, you crack me up.
Florida and Texas are pro-business, right? So they are they're not like New York, but they're not cheap. They want people to come there. They want to make it nice for them, but they have their agenda too. Wyoming has no agenda. Just give me the $50 every year and I'm happy. $100 to start, $50, we're good.
All right. So what about someone who kind of, they had a townhome and then they got married and they kept the townhome and are renting it out, but it's in their personal name. And how does one play catch up to protect their assets?
Right. So the first thing you do is call up your mortgage broker and tell him, I'd like to transfer it to my name. Is that okay? Now he can tell you it's due on sale. If you're going to transfer it to a LLC, that means you sold it and therefore your whole mortgage is due today. Bring the money, please. So if interest rates are steady or dropping, they don't care because, okay, move it over. It's all the same to them. But if you bought it, and it depends really on the timing, how long after, because if it's 2 months after, it's no big deal. But if you bought it in 2021 at a really great interest rate, and now you come to them and say that today, they'll say, no, sorry, it's due on sale, and now you'll have to borrow the money again with much higher interest rates. So if the timing is short, you can go to your bank and he'll have no problem with that. Sometimes they don't understand and you got to get your lawyer to explain it to them because they think there's something going on. You're transferring it. How am I losing? Everybody's got this idea that they're losing out if they don't understand how things work. But you can usually explain it to the bank. Number two, you have to go to your title company. If you have title insurance, the title is written and says, if there's any problem with the title, then Jen Josie is protected and we will give her all the money. And people forget that when you put it in, Virginia LLC, then something happens and you go to the title company will say, we don't know any Virginia LLC and Jen Josie doesn't own the property. So it's got nothing to do with us. So you would have to go to the title company and ask them, please, can you transfer it to my name, which is usually not a problem either. The one thing that can cost you a little money is some states have a transfer tax.
Okay.
So they're going to nail you on that and you'll have to pay that if you want to transfer it. But, one of the things that, LLCs, there are a lot of people that have been in business a long time. They don't understand LLCs. And the reason is they never pay attention to it. To them, it's just an afterthought. My lawyer takes care of it. It's okay. Everything's good. I'm always protected. They don't realize the intricacies, which is why I go on LinkedIn and, people understand. I think I've done a pretty good job of educating people, understanding that LLCs are important. They're trickier than you think. They have to be done right. It's not just good enough to say, I did an LLC. And where am I getting at? where am I getting at? I told you.
We're
You
talking
see,
about
I'm doing
playing
worse
catch up.
after 5 than you're doing at 9.
And there's a little fee.
The transfer fee. So in general, people don't want to pay money for LLCs and these transfer fees. My feeling is, and we deal not only with real estate, we deal with everybody, but I would say about 95% real estate. If you're not willing to do the LLC right and pay a couple of $100 and maybe pay, also $200 a year, whatever it is, depending on the state, and you want to cheap out and do things quick and dirty, then really don't invest. I mean, if this is the building, this is your Fort Knox holding your assets and protecting your personal assets from problems, which in real estate, as somebody said, first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is check my WhatsApp, make sure there was no fires in any of my apartments. Real estate is not an easy business. If you're not willing to go the extra mile to set up a structure, to maybe have one more entity than you'd like to have, you probably shouldn't be in business. And it's the same with the transfer tax. You may have to pay the transfer tax, whatever the state asks, smile and say thank you and transfer it and put it in that LLC.
Wonderful. All right. So we do have some listeners that have not purchased their first property yet. They haven't done a flip yet. They're still learning, and we want to set them up properly. So what advice do you have about creating your entity for brand new people in real estate? What are some protections they need to make sure they have in place?
It's really just to get an LLC. When you get an LLC, do all your compliance right. Follow the rules. And aside from annual compliance, which is making sure your annual report is paid and you always have a registered agent, because not having a registered agent is an automatic, you're out. Then you also need to do certain things to act. When you have single member LLC, then the states can get tough. Even some good states have cracked down on single member LLCs. And let me just explain to you what that means. When I have an LLC, as we talked about before, you can't pierce the corporate veil. Okay, so if you have a problem, you want to sue my LLC, you can't come after my personal assets. This works very nicely when there's a multi-member LLC. You have two partners, or let's say vice versa. You have a personal problem with me, you can't get to my LLC. We will not, see, you have protection both ways. If you're after me, I got into a car accident with you, you can't take my LLC, you can't take my property, because my property doesn't belong to me, it belongs to my LLC. So this makes sense when there's 2 members or 3 members or 5 members. How can you take control of the LLC? It's not me. There are a whole bunch of people, and there's an LLC that's a live entity by itself. But what happens if I'm a single member LLC? I'm the only one that owns the LLC. So a lot of courts will say, and courts have said this, come on, who are we fooling? This LLC belongs to you. It's yours, and we're taking it away from you because you just ran the guy over. So again, Wyoming's pretty good about it. Nevada's pretty good about it. Even Florida has already said single member LLCs will be able to get to your LLC assets. So what you want to do, there are a few strategies over here. First of all, even in states that allow single member LLCs to be protected, the opposing lawyer will try to prove that you have not been working as a separate entity from your LLC, that you and the LLC are one and the same.
Oh.
And there are a few ways to do that. The first thing they'll say is, do you have a separate bank account? You don't actually have to have one, but if you're commingling accounts, then who are you fooling? This is not a separate business. This is you. And they will nail you. Okay. They will take your LLC away from you. Or another strategy is turn your single member LLC into a multi-member LLC. Give 5% to your kid. Now we have a multi-member LLC and they won't be able to get to you. But again, like people ask me all the time, do you provide operating agreements? And we do. If, it costs money, but they say, no, just give me a 1-page standard operating agreement. And I say, no, we don't do that, but they'll download it from the internet. The operating agreement will say things that are totally contrary to the way that they're running their LLC. So the first thing every lawyer will ask in a lawsuit is, can I see your operating agreement? And then they'll prove that you're not running it according to your operating agreement because you have no idea what it says there, which means that this is not the LLC, this is you. And then again, you will be personally liable and they'll take your LLC from you.
And this is where you come in, and we're going to get to that in a second, but I have a burning question here. How is a single member LLC different from, say, a sole proprietorship?
So single member LLC has an LLC, okay? Sole proprietorship has no protection whatsoever.
Limited liability, okay.
Right, so officially it's an LLC. The question is, can they take it? It's called a charging order. Charging order protection means that a personal lawsuit against me cannot take my LLC away. And that can stand up in many states, especially if you do things right. Sole proprietorship, you are the company. There's no two ways about it. You haven't split the company off from you. It's one and the same.
Thank you for clarifying that. And then I want to go a little deeper. What is the difference between S Corp and C Corp?
Oh, wow. Okay. So the real question is, what's the difference between an LLC and an S Corp? Okay. This is a very big misconception. There's corporations, right? Before there were LLCs, I think S Corps were actually before that. They're corporations, and corporations have a lot of rules. I mean, it's like, driving, instead of your scooter, you're driving a tank. You got to have a board of directors. You got to have all sorts of meetings and minutes. And this is like heavy duty stuff to have a corporation. And people didn't want to pay the double taxation, and they wanted to be light and easy. So a corporation, at the end of the year, the corporation pays taxes on all its assets, and on all its profits, and it stays in the corporation. If you want to then pull it out again, now you're getting capital gains tax. You're making profit from the corporation. So we call that double taxation. S Corp was to say, you're a small guy, we'll give you the liability protection, and we'll have what's called PTE, pass-through entity. So it passes, the profits flow straight through to you. There's no taxes on the corporate level. Whatever the corporation makes, it goes to your pocket and you pay the taxes. Okay. Then we have LLCs. So S Corp is not an entity. When you have an S Corp, you're either a corporation that doesn't want to be taxed as a corporation, only as a S Corp, and the taxes flow, or an LLC, which is taxed as an S Corp. Okay. So your LLC can be taxed as an S Corp.
All right.
And that is where people get really confused, because a lot of people talk about S Corps because all their neighbors have stores or they have businesses and they're all S Corps. And then the real estate guys, the neighbor tells them, oh yeah, I got an LLC, but you got to make sure to be an S Corp. And that's all wrong for the real estate guys. You don't want to be an S Corp as a real estate person. There are a lot of problems with that. The reason why a lot of businesses are S Corps is when you're an LLC, you're going to be paying self-employment taxes on all your earnings, no matter how much it is. As an S Corp, you can give yourself a salary and pay self-employment taxes only on that portion. And then the rest can be passive profit, and you don't have to pay employment taxes on that. For real estate owners, their profit is all passive. They don't need an S Corp. The S Corp will only really mess them up big time. Because, like, for example, I can transfer out from an LLC a property to somewhere else and not be taxed. That's not a taxable event. If I have an S Corp and I need for whatever reason to transfer it out of S Corp elsewhere, I will have to pay capital gains tax when I transfer it. So S Corp is a disaster for real estate.
So I thought I heard you say this, but you want to be an LLC, but then file your taxes as an S Corp? Did I hear you say that?
No, you don't want to. You want to be an LLC. Don't opt for the S Corp option. That's suicidal in most cases.
All right.
There may be reasons, and your attorney may suggest it because you may have a specific situation, but in general, it's not a good idea.
Got it. Thank you for clarifying that, because I was like, it negated what you said, and I'm like, I thought I heard him say that. So thank you for clarifying that. Now
I get 2 LinkedIn messages a day. Should I be an S Corp? My friend told me I should be an S Corp.
So going back to, I just touched on this a little bit. Where do you come in, and where does Riverside come in to help us house flippers, real estate investors, people who own Airbnbs, etc.? What service do you provide for people like us?
Okay, so Riverside is probably a great place for people today, because we're sort of transitioning. We started out as strictly a filing company. All we did was form your entities, charge our fee, $100 or whatever it is, get you your year ends, form your entity, pass you along the way. And then if you wanted annual reports, we take care of for double digits. We'd be a registered agent for a very low fee. And that was our entire service. Today, we have expanded a little bit. I mean, that's part of my role. And we consult with people. We've also opened up a management portal. Even if people are not using our service, they can have a management portal. And if they are using our service, then the management portal is really out of this world. We do a lot more things. But at the end of the day, we still only charge you for one thing, the good old double digits for your annual reports and entity formation and things like that. That may change at some point, but at this point, we're just a simple filings company. I mean, I don't like to tout ourselves, but I really, if I'm not good at something, I'm happy to share that with you. But this is like, Riverside is sort of a dream to work with because we have you can talk to us. Most people you can't talk. We're like 4 guys and we talk to all our clients. They know us and they can get us on the phone. We can take care of things quickly and we care. We actually all care, all of us. We're not just some clerk who's, clocking in 9 to 5. And, we add so much, but our fees are not only probably competitive with some of these internet services, we have no hidden fees. Everything's transparent. We're not here to bite you at some point once you're in. We tell you everything from A to Z. These are the prices. I live in Israel, as I told you. You can't go to a supermarket over here because there could be 5 supermarkets in your neighborhood, and each one will have a whole bunch of things cheap. But the thing that they know you need to buy that week, that's going to be like really expensive. And each one's got their own things. So there's like nowhere to shop. It's all the same. You just give up and just go anywhere and pay the prices. So that's sort of what goes on with entity formation. They're going to bite you and, we'll give you first year registered agent free. Wow. Okay. Nobody asks questions. Second year, $250 registered agent service. They don't even know what they're doing. They just pay the bills and, they're already hooked in. We are just like straight.
And you cover all 50 states.
We cover all 50 states.
And
yes.
You basically keep people compliant, correct?
If they want, we keep people compliant, and we have our management portal. If they feel that they're up to it, they keep themselves compliant and use our portal for free.
Nice. And if someone uses a company from 6 years ago that created their entity, it's not that they are transferring their entity to you. You are providing these annual reports and you are acting as a registered agent for that, even though you did not create that LLC for them. Is that correct?
Right. So we can do that. What happens is you put your entity into the portal. At the end of the year, we send you an email that says your annual report is due. You have to pay your registered agent fee. Of course, we give you a choice. We say, would you like us to file it for you?
Got it.
Would you like us to be your registered agent for next year? More often than not, it's a lot easier to just hit that button and get it over with.
Yep.
Or they'll call us and say, look, these guys will give me a really good price. This is a secret. We can't, I hope not too many people are listening. But they'll say, look, my old registered agent was giving me this price. Would you match it? And typically we'll say, sure, we'll match it for you. So it becomes a no-brainer.
Wonderful. This is fantastic. And before we go on to the second part of the podcast, which is what makes you a badass, which we just found out you are because you're going to help protect all of us. What is this Corporate Transparency Act? I've never even heard of this. So give me a very high level, quick overview of what this is.
If I can scream so loud that the whole Florida can hear, I would do it right now. This is something that's been going on for a while, and I still speak to people who don't know what it is or never even heard of it. They're like, I never heard of this, leave me alone, bye. But this is serious. Now, like I said, we find that people don't really comply. If we do an audit, somebody says, here's 10 entities I want to put in your portal, we do a free audit for you. We'll tell you this one is, you haven't paid the bills in 6 years. This one is just past due by 3 months. And this one was dissolved, 15 years before you even started it. So, you're in bad shape. And we'll sort of get them into shape. And that's another reason why we make money. They see that they haven't been doing it well, or the service that they're using was not really serving them. And then we'll have to, fix things up, which costs money. And of course, our transparent price. No, we don't say, okay, we got you behind the 8 ball now, we'll take advantage. No, we just do our regular prices. So the states, this is serious business. The states don't care. It's do whatever you want. We'll put you out of bad standing. We'll dissolve you. The federal government has had enough of phony money flowing through LLCs. As we said, you can have a Wyoming LLC that has a child entity in 30 states, and you got a whole complicated structure, and the FBI will never figure out who financed this terror organization, which is what happened in 9/11. Mm-hmm. And the federal government said, okay, the states want to play games. Wyoming wants their $50. That's fantastic. But we're in charge of security of the United States. This has nothing to do with finances. This has to do with security. We need to know who owns every LLC. Okay, so any LLC that you own, even ones that were formed before 2024, the law went into effect January 1st, 2024, even old LLCs, we want all that information. And there's 2 types of people that they want. They want anybody who has a 25% interest in your LLC, 25% interest owner, or somebody who's a substantial decision maker, which could be a CFO, CEO, anybody in the C-suite, or a corporate counsel, or somebody else who, for some reason, has substantial control over the LLC. And they want that listed, and it doesn't make a difference what state you're in. This is a federal filing. They lock it up in their database. This is a big problem. Like I freaked out January 2nd when I woke up because I saw all over the news, your LLCs can't be anonymous anymore. Of course they're anonymous. And you hear things like that and you go nuts because this is really anonymous. The federal government knows about it. It's locked up in a database. There's serious penalties for the federal government if they leak any of this information.
Wow.
And if you don't file this information, there's serious penalties for the LLC owner. So we're talking about $500 penalty a day, up to $10,000 and possibly 2 years jail time. So we're in April now. The first batch of LLCs that were formed in early January are over the deadline if they haven't filed yet. And I can assure you there are a lot of people out there that have not filed. So whether the government's going to run after them for $500 a day this early in the game when, people don't really know, especially since the law says willful intent. I think at this point you can claim that you had no idea about the law and you'd probably be right. But at some point, things are going to catch up and people need to take this seriously. This is not LLCs. This is the federal government that you're messing with.
And what all do you have to do? You have to say who owns the LLC? I got a little confused there.
There's a form you have to, there's a filing that you have to do that lists certain information about all the owners, a few pieces of information. They need a ID that has to be photocopied with your residential address. And those are your date of birth. They want to know who you are. They want to know where to reach you when they need to.
And that goes to the government.
That goes to the federal government. It's in a locked up database that nobody can see except the federal government when there's a security issue.
That was what my question was. Okay, so this is not becoming public knowledge. It's just for the government to make sure there's nothing going on as far as what we had, say, for 9/11. So this is just a protections for people. But it's called Corporate Transparency Act. So that's exactly what it is. You need to be transparent with the government. So goodness. All right. Well, thank you
just to scare you a little bit more.
Yeah.
Just to scare you a little bit more. The agency in the government that you file this with is called FinCEN. If you know that agency, it's called the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network.
Oh, goodness.
So, people don't want to be in that database. They're a little bit queasy about being in the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network database. So it scares people. But people really that are running legitimate business, I try to calm people down and explain to them there's nothing to fear. That's the good news. I got some really bad news for you, though. New York, my favorite state where I came from, my hometown, has really caught on to this idea. They thought, wow, that's pretty cool. Let's do it for New York LLCs. So New York will be having a Transparency Act as well, and they're going to want the same information. Now, which parts of it are going to be public knowledge and which are going to be hidden away in the database, we don't know. Or I don't know at this point. But anonymity, maybe we may wake up January 2nd, 2025 and find out that your LLC is not anonymous in New York either. But so far, we're okay. With the federal government, we're still okay.
Oh, my goodness. Well, thank you for sharing all that. And like I said, I've been looking forward to this interview because I am just dumb when it comes to this part of my business. I trust in my husband to make sure he's on top of these things. And we do have a good attorney that we work with, but this is super, super important. I do appreciate it. So before I get to the second part, do you have a badassery bestowment that you can share with the listeners? Just a little tiny piece of advice?
I can unload on them. You guys, time to comply, time to get your LLCs, protect yourself. It's the best investment you ever make. It's far more powerful than insurance. I mean, you can lose your entity, whereas insurance, everything, there are ways to structure LLCs where you have no equity in it too. So those are some more advanced tricks that we can do, but you should have insurance. But it's super important. It's super cheap, and it's a super pain in the neck to be in compliance, but figure it out. Don't sweep it. Don't leave it on the corner of your desk together with all the parking tickets that you never plan on paying. Take it and take care of it.
Well, I think that is excellent advice. Thank you very much. And how does the audience find you to make sure they are being compliant?
The easiest place to reach out to me before giving you phone numbers, which nobody will get, or email addresses that nobody will write down, is just look for me on LinkedIn. It's Tzvi, Tzvi, and according to the advice of some of my people, it's Tzvi LLC. Weiser, Weiser. So it's Tzvi LLC Weiser, and you can, people message me day and night on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to, then we can take it offline if need be. But I'm happy to respond to any questions over there.
Is there it's riversidefilings.com, though, is another way to find you.
Yeah.
Okay, so riversidefilings.com.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And my email address is tweiser@rsfilings.com. That's where it gets confusing. People write to riversidefilings.com and it doesn't get here. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. The second part of the podcast is what makes Tzvi Weiser a badass, which you are. And I use the acronym badass. So what is a book the first letter is B for book. What's a book that's made a huge difference in your life?
So I think that Brene Brown, I'm sure she's a best-selling author, but she's got to pay me because anybody asked me this question. I love her book. It was a game changer for me. The Gift of Imperfection. It is. I make everybody I know read it. You can't talk to me till you read the book. It's a big issue by lots of people. Just give it up. Nobody really cares how good you did or, even podcasts don't scare me anymore. Who cares? It's just a podcast. We'll live.
It's just a podcast. That is a great book, actually. And I love me some Brene Brown. Oh, my goodness. She's wonderful. And then Daring Greatly is another good one that I enjoyed that she wrote. So if you haven't read that one, check that one out. All right. The first A in badass is for advice. You gave us some excellent advice today. What is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
The best piece of advice I received was probably about 40 years ago from a man who started giving us a series of lectures. And he said, I ask you one favor. You don't have to like me. You don't have to like my style. You don't have to like my jokes and stories, but listen to the message. Please listen to my message and decide for yourself if you want to accept that message or not. In a world full of noise and full of bias and full of so many things, it's been such a gift for me. I learn from so many places and so many things just because I'm zeroed in and focused on the message. It doesn't even have to be a person. It could be a situation. You get to a situation, you see what's going on, and you say, wow, there's a message here. Just guys, gals, there's messages all over the place. There are people that you won't look at, you don't want to hear. They're giving messages. Listen, America is very divided today. Israel is very divided. The whole world is very divided today. If there's a message, I try to keep my integrity. I listen. And if there's something good that they have to say, it's not automatically out. Let's listen to what they're saying. There's a lot of value.
So listen to the message, not necessarily the messenger. I love that. Thank you for that. All right. The D in badass is for drive. What drives you to be successful?
What drives me to be successful? We live in a world, you got to earn a living. I'm driven to do that and move on. That's my goal in life. I'm driven to get past that point where I did my duty for the day. I did it for the month. I got the money. Let's now live. I want to live. My drive is to get to the living stage of life.
I love it. All right. The second A in badass is aspiration. I'm a big goal setter. So what is a goal you are currently working on?
My goal is to get to a point, and I don't know if you ever get there, where my advice is so valuable. I don't have to work hard or study or keep up just because LLCs is relatively new to me, just to get to a point where your expertise and people are paying for your expertise and you don't have to, it doesn't take a lot of, just pick up the phone, talk. And, my mentor was like that. I was at a competitive company. The guy is 75 years old. They won't let him quit. They just keep throwing more and more money at him. He wants to retire because the whole company revolves around him. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't charge for his services, but their 1031, their title, their cost seg is only people use their company because they get to talk to him. And that's the place where I want to be.
That is such a good place to be. And I see you getting there very soon. This has been super fun. All right. The first S in badass is for systems. What systems do you have in place to help you achieve success?
So first of all, I got discipline. I mean, I've been up at the same time every day for the past 35 years.
Oof, which is what time?
That I don't want to say. No, it's early. We're talking about 4:30.
Okay.
So, but in terms of where my place is today, we got an incredible team. Like I said, we got no clerks in our office. We got 4 driven people. We just hired another one because business is growing. We all appreciate the business. We love the business, and to work with people like that, and we're all very knowledgeable. is incredible. And the second system that we had which has been a game changer is, again, LLCs, like you said, it's very hard to sell. We first started selling them. Nobody, I'm with a guy, leave me alone. I don't want to change. It's too complicated. This system where I've gone back to all the people that I know very well that would love to work with me, but don't want to get their hands dirty with LLCs. I say, all I need from you guys is a name and a state for all your entities. And that's it. I'll show you what we're going to do for you. I'll give you a demo once it's in the system. You're done. And they'll say, okay, so what do I have to do to get it running? No, we did it. It's done. You can manage everything from here. You can change. You cannot change. It's up to you. Here are the keys. Have a great time.
Nice.
So that's been a game changer.
That is a huge game changer. Well, to wrap up this podcast, the final S in badass is for success. What does success mean to Tzvi Weiser?
Really, it's one that probably won't resonate with a lot of people, but it's really just purpose. I know I got a purpose in this world, and rather than fulfilling my desire, it's to be able to break my desire and fulfill my purpose. And when I can do that, get past the desire, get past that stage, that very material stage, and do what I think I'm supposed to do at every minute, that's to me, the ultimate goal.
Well, I appreciate you so much being on today's show and really explaining things to me. And it's definitely clicking in my brain now. So I do appreciate that. And for the listeners, one more time, I think probably the easiest for them to remember if they're driving in their car right now is go to riversidefilings.com or find you, and it's TZVI Weiser, Weiser, on LinkedIn, and you throw out some great content, etc. So thank you so much for being on today's show. It has been an absolute pleasure having you on here.
My pleasure. Thank you. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, thank you so much for being here. That is all. Thank you for listening. And we'll catch you on the next episode. Now, go out there and share your badassery. And don't forget, make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye. Whoop, whoop.
Thank you for listening to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. If you need more badassery, you can follow Jen Josie by visiting therealjenjosie.com or become a member of RAIN by registering on rainmastermind.com.